Hello, this is Dr. Terry Daniels, and welcome to the Rhythm of Business podcast. I have as our guest Rick Brawn, who is the Managing Director of Operations for MiddleGround Capital. And we really just want to explore with Rick all of his years of expertise and leadership on how is it that you find rhythm with leadership when you're leading operations. And he's going to give us his wisdom and guidance in this area. But just to get us started, Rick, tell us a little bit about you and your leadership journey, and how you've come to frame your leadership approach to people.
No, sure. Delighted, Terry. Thank you for having me on, by the way, and it's wonderful to be a part of your story too. Now, my journey has been a long one. I'm in the middle of my life now, and it all started basically when I was just going into Pratt& and Whitney into the aerospace industry and just moved up the ranks, and they gave me more responsibility, cut my teeth at like most people as a supervisor, and that's where you really start learning how to lead people. And it really was a very humbling experience, working for um, basically in a factory where the people that are supposedly reporting to you are much older than you. So they got much more experience, and you think, well, what am I going to provide to these guys? But sooner or later, you learn how to earn their respect and support them. And I think a servant leadership style is very important because other people will have expertise and capabilities you won't have that may officially report to you, but you can still be a strong leader to help them. And then, of course, later in life, family of four, big leader in my own home.
Oh yeah.
That's super important. And even just bringing it forward to today, I'm working at MiddleGround Capital in a leadership position. And I learned at this point in my life, you don't always have to be a person who has lots of people reporting to you. You could lead people informally, and I do that on a regular basis. Just people that may not report to me and influence, expand your sphere of influence, and just check in with people and see how they're doing and what's going on, both personally and professionally. And you could lead them in many ways. So leadership is a broad term, but I'm just very blessed and humble that I've had the experience to be able to lead lots of different people.
So thank you for that. So if you think about those humble beginnings of supervisor leadership in manufacturing kind of spaces like that, and then you said something about the servant leadership. Did you see that model before? How did you come to the style that you have as a leader?
Interesting. Yeah, most people have big people who influence them in one way or another. It could be a pastor, it could be a brother, an uncle. There's lots of people at work that could influence you. And for me, there was one distinctive leader back in my days at Pratt& Whitney who was basically running a very large turbine airfoil factory in North Haven, Connecticut. And his mantra was all around really supporting the women and men that worked on the line to help them do their job either more safely, more efficiently, more easily. And so his approach was always just going down to the line and looking at how things were actually going and got to know them personally, obviously. So when I saw him do that, that really influenced me a lot, Terry. I was able to then kind of make that in my own way and started to do that with my little production line that I had in his plant. So his name was Ed Northern, really instrumental in shaping my leadership style.
Yeah. Well, and as you think about that, we are, I'll use this word, we are a cog in the wheel. And as I use the word rhythm a lot, Rick, it's one of those things where we are always affecting something in our sphere. We're always, and I can be intentional how I want to impact or affect that is within my sphere. And good leadership is simply saying, I want to win, I
Hmm.
want to get results. I want to make sure that we reach our goals, but how we do that. And so that intentionality to meet those employees where they are, talk to those employees. I'm telling you, it's magical, but that's my.
No, you touch upon a really important point. I think for me personally, I focused a lot more on the result initially. And yeah, I probably did not focus as much on the how and really relating with people more. But as my, experience grew and with time, I kind of learned how to shift that focus more to the relationship with people and realizing that the results will come when you have that more, uh, let's say empathetic relationship with people. And it's not intuitive. I think it takes time to really understand that because I think we all want to win, like you
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. But I think it is a learned skill because we all come in with goals and objectives in organizations to get results. We're paid for results, and we want results, and the how is still left up to us. And
Mm-hmm.
so if it's left up to us, do I do it with hard and fast, decision making? How do I do it? And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to figure out, how to do it most effectively. I just happen to believe that once I get that rhythm, it just takes its own outcome, its own course. As you think about it, Rick, people that are going into leadership and, do they think leaders just get to sit in their offices, put their feet up on the desk? What are the misconceptions that people have about being in leadership roles, you think?
The misconceptions, yeah,
Yes.
there's probably quite a few. Um, I think a lot of leaders or potential leaders or up and coming leaders will think, wow, you know, the more power and influence I have, the stronger or better leader I'll be. I
Mhm.
think people may thrive on the idea of leading 100 people one day or 1,000 or 10,000 people. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're a better leader just because you have a bigger group of people behind you. And that's more formal than informal leadership. And what I mean by that is on an org chart, you may lead 1,000 people, but informally, you could have a much greater influence,
Wow.
even though they might not report to you. So I think there's a lot of other misconceptions too, like leadership. Usually you see a pyramid, drawn that way. But if you invert the pyramid, I like that kind of model on a leadership style where you are really, as a leader, reporting to or supporting the people on
Mm.
the organization. So you have a much wider group of people that you could really lead. And that kind of servant leadership style I talked about earlier is probably growing, I think, today, where 20, 30 years ago it wasn't. So that was another misconception, I think, back in the day of having the triangle turned around.
Yeah, and I love that model. I think you said it very well in that it's a foundation for everybody that's above me. I am a foundation for everyone that's above me, and you are you're singing my music, Rick. I'm just telling you, man. I love your style, and this style, whether people recognize it or not, it works, and
Exactly.
it's more sustainable long term as well. If I lead because I walk into a room and they follow because I walk into the room, that's a short-term leadership skill set.
Right.
But when people say, man, I like working for Rick,
That's it.
yeah, and I want to be part of this organization because of the rhythm that we find, that is key. So let me ask you this. A lot of demands in your role and responsibilities, whether it's one or 1,000 or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, we talk about this work-life balance, life balance, whatever.
Mhm.
How do you find balance with the demand on your job, the family of, with 4 children? How do you find that balance between all of that to keep your rhythm?
Yeah. It has to start with leading yourself. I've been on a journey, even over the last several years of my life today, just realizing I probably didn't lead myself as much as I thought of leading others. And what I mean by that is like taking time to kind of reflect on, am I getting a good balance in life? A lot of people will just keep plugging along, whether it's the job or the family and other normal duties and responsibilities parents will have and leaders will have in an organization. But if you don't step back and check in with yourself and say, hey, how am I doing with my own health, my own spirituality, my emotional, mental health, physical health? You got to lead yourself first. Without starting there, you could really mess up your other leadership roles, whether it's at work or at home. And so that's something I've personally been on a journey on lately and really appreciating that more and more. And then you could step back and say, okay, well, if I'm doing that well, how well am I leading my family at home? Do I really have those personal connections, even with your own children, at a level that they really can say, yeah, dad knows what's going on with me lately, versus no, he's been checked out. He's just been too tied up at work and things like that. Or you could look at the community. I'm very involved at my church and with some study groups, and so I'm realizing more and more my my satisfaction in leadership and in life is coming through helping others and leading them,
Mhm.
especially because we all got issues outside of work. Everybody has them. Many people might not talk about them. And so once you kind of crack that egg open and start to realize, hey, I can help this person or these groups with whatever they might be facing, then you could really expand your leadership style. And of course, at work, keeping it in balance, making sure you're not staying in the office later and then realizing all the people that report to you are kind of watching you and they don't want to leave before the boss leaves, kind of thing. So you could do work at home. I kind of chuckle because sometimes I don't get that right. Lately, I've been more focused on getting out of here so that the people who are in the office aren't staying here just because I'm here, that kind of stuff.
There's that rhythm, right? There's that rhythm. They're following your rhythm. And but you said something that I think is really impressive is that you've been on the journey. And I think that we have to see this as a journey.
Exactly.
Really, leadership, effectiveness, our presence, everything about us is a journey. Uh,
Hmm.
and there's no idle events in our lives that are not connected. There are no idle events in our lives that my family, to my work, to my play, to my study, to my religion, spirituality. There's no disconnection from any one of those events. They're not siloed.
Right.
They're all one. And I am the one unique piece of all of those,
Yeah.
but I carry that everywhere. So that journey mindset is a beautiful way to state, where we are, where we're going, and uh, and people need to see that. I'm
Yeah.
on, on a journey.
Especially later in life too, Terry. People may say, "Oh, well, you're close to retirement, or maybe you got grandchildren," but your leadership role just continues to evolve and expand, right? It doesn't matter how old and what stage of life you're at.
Yeah.
You could be just starting your career and first time manager role. You could be much later in your career and in life, and you can still continue to find ways to sharpen that. Like I call it sharpening the saw, to use one of Covey's examples, to say, all right, well, how am I evolving in my own leadership style at this point in my life? Because it is a journey, like you said.
It is a journey. And again, we never, I tell people all the time, I don't know how to turn me off. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I'm 64 and I'm still pressing as hard as I ever press because I enjoy what I do, whether it's, in any role that I have. Again, it's a journey. And I don't get to take myself off this journey. I'm
Yeah.
not taking myself off this journey. But I think the other thing is how do I press into that even more? The other thing that I'm curious about is I see this passion. I see this naturalness of leadership that you have. I see your very good comfort in your style, in your rhythm. How do you instill this style or use this style to advance it through other people? How do you grow your talent? As an organization, you're not gonna be able to put it all on your shoulders and carry it. You got to help people.
Yeah.
How do you take parts of you, instill it in others, so that they can carry it with you?
Yeah, no, great question. I think it starts with being aware of how strong a shadow a leader casts in an organization. And that's true at home as well. Like I realize my behaviors and actions at home cast a shadow on my children, even though they're all adults. They see how dad behaves, what he does, doesn't do. And at work, the same thing. So being aware that people are always watching you, even when you don't realize it,
Mhm.
and they are maybe judging, maybe assessing, maybe taking what they like and what they don't like and shaping their own leadership style. So, one of the most important things is having that awareness just when you walk to your office. Are you walking slow enough when somebody says good morning? You just don't say good morning, keep walking past them, and you say, no, how are you? And you mean it, and you stop and you check in, and it might take 5 minutes out of your time versus just jumping in your office, getting on emails. So, the way you could actually par pass on your leadership style and ways that you want to help others take in what you think might be a good thing about your own leadership style is just realizing they're watching you. And the more time you keep your door open, the more time you do management by walking around, the more time you just spend with others, whether it's your kids at home or people, your colleagues and peers and, friends at work or even outside, in other groups, you can always feel that people are kind of listening and taking in your leadership style in one way or another. I hope that makes sense. Is
I
that
mean, again, what I are you using so many great terms I'm going to use when you're not around, Rick. But when you talk about the shadow that we cast,
yeah,
we're always projecting something, and people are reading our shadow, and they're
100%.
responding and reacting to that. That image is an impressive image because I think that's exactly what we're doing every day. And so people are going to take our cues. I mean, if I'm dismissive when I walk by someone's office, good morning, hey, good morning, how you? And and I really didn't mean it. Again, there's my, a word I use often, Rick, is that we're always putting the narrative out there for the commercial that's going to be talked about for me.
Yeah.
We all have a commercial, and we're always writing the narrative for my commercial with every interaction. And so we just got to understand we have a shadow. And people are going to take our cues and they're going to follow our cues. And whether it's at work or at home or our children, whatever,
That's
they're going to take our cues. And we have a chance to write the commercial the way we want it with every single interaction. That's the rhythm that I love to talk about.
and it's when you least expect it. They're watching you when you don't expect it at all, right?
Yeah. Think about those moments, Rick, where, you know, we have this sigh, this look of disgust or anything. Those moments
Yeah.
are still part of the narrative,
hmm
even though I thought no one saw it but me, right? But felt it but me. But I got to be mindful, and we're not going to be perfect, right?
Right.
But I need to be mindful as a leader that if I'm going to lead, I need to always be a leader. I don't get to take a day off. I take off when I sleep.
That's about the only time you get to recharge and realize that's exactly it. Or you're in a cave by yourself reading a book or
Take
something.
off when
That's
no one's around.
that's pretty much it.
That's it, right?
That's
So
it.
yeah, I like that. So how do you, as you look at your own journey,
Mm-hmm.
uh, how do you look at growth for you that impacts your greater organization, not necessarily middle ground, but how do you look at yourself and your growth and how it impacts the growth of the organization?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is um, being a part of the leadership team here. I feel very blessed to kind of help shape the direction, the culture, and I put a lot of emphasis on culture. In today's economy, people could get jobs in a lot of different ways, and retaining really top talent is hard. So the leadership, the strength of the leadership and the culture you create, super important. So talking about evolving my own leadership style, I want to be, constantly involved in shaping the kind of culture we have here at Middle Ground, whether it's just, hey, let's make sure we have a little bit of a social event with our teams and there's a little budget to go out for pizza. And when did you last go do that? Or having, any kind of like very soft benefits to go ahead and help people say it's more than just doing the job, getting the results. People love being on the winning team.
Mhm.
But back to your point about how, if you get to do that and you get to have breakfast every Friday morning together as a group, things like that. Coffee and donuts might sound simple and easy, but not a lot of people do that. Or they take their donut and coffee and go back in their office and get back on the email instead of hanging out in the kitchen for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So for me, shaping my own leadership style, Terry, I think a lot about, where can I take middle ground to the next level with the leadership team? Our founding partners here, they're very conscientious of that. And I love that about middle ground. They've shaped the culture here, or we've shaped it in a way that I'm very fortunate to work here. And I can see that just continuing to make middle ground different than a lot of other firms that I've seen and actually worked in. And that really motivates me even more to say, yeah, not only is this a place I want to continue to work at, but make a difference in the way we do our work, going back to the how.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just we have a lot of good communication. We can always do better. And shaping the way we communicate with our teams is very important, whether it's a firm-wide, a company-wide event, or just having a one-to-one.
Mm-hmm.
And how often do you have one-to-ones if you're in a leadership role with your team?
Yeah.
I can go on and on, but that's the way I think about it.
But I think you're right. I think there's I can be intentional and sounds to me like you all have rhythm as an organization. And I mean, when you say that you're fortunate and blessed to work at a company like MiddleGround, that says a lot, right? That says a lot. I know you're not saying it because we're having this conversation, but that says a lot. And I believe you genuinely mean that. There's something rhythmic there
Yeah,
with managing partners and you all as leaders of the organization that makes people want to say, listen, how do I get to work there?
exactly.
And I'm standing outside waiting for the door to open. So that's impressive. Final question. If you think about individuals who may be wanting to go into leadership,
Hmm.
um, as you look back over your early career in that supervisor type of role where you first started out,
Okay.
on this cusp of, boy, I can lead, right? What do you say to that person
Mm.
who is looking up this ladder? And I see Rick Brawn, who's doing amazing stuff as a leader. What do you say to that person who says, I want to be a leader? What do you say to that person about this journey again?
Yeah, I think the first thing is why? Why do you want to be that leader, right? A lot of people might say I make more money.
Yeah.
I'll be, I'll be like, well, that's probably not the best answer. Maybe think a little harder about that. Yeah, you could do it, but you might not be a leader that long if that's really the main motivation. I want to have more power, more people under my wings, and I'll be like, still okay, I get you. And I had some of those feelings, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But if it becomes more like, well, I really enjoy working with people, and I'll be like, okay, well, what do you mean? Well, in a leadership role, I get to work with a group, a team, and I could help them achieve an outcome, whatever that might be. I have, some experience, some knowledge I want to impart on others and help them just grow in their journey. Now we're on the right track. And I would tell that person, lastly, like the best leaders I've seen were the ones that imparted their knowledge and wisdom and experience to others, where the others actually excelled in their career, in their organization, in their families, and kind of moved up the ladder in whatever way you want to think of it, Terry, faster than themselves.
Yes.
Like there's a thrill that I get now where, hey, if I help a director, a VP in my own firm and they become a partner, I'll be like, amen to that, right? Because that's what leadership is about. It's not about yourself personally, making more money, having more people working for you, or any of those others more selfish things. It's more outward looking to say, okay, so how did I help them get to where they are? Did I have a leadership influence with their journey? And if the answer is yes, and you're thinking that way when you're starting your career and you're getting that first time supervisory role, there's going to be a lot of challenges. There's going to be days where people are bringing their problems to you with no solutions or just venting and all sorts of other things that you have to do as a leader and listen. But the benefits, the positives far outweigh all the challenges you'll put up with. So that's what I would say to those first time up and coming leaders.
What a great answer. And Rick, your wisdom, your years of experience have just shone brightly. Man, I tell you what, MiddleGround has a great leader. I can just tell you that, having worked with organizations across the globe, um, as a coach consultant. Again, very impressive,
All right.
with how you show up as a leader, um, and how you speak about MiddleGround. Very impressive. And so, to the audience, this is Rick Braun. He's the Managing Director of Operations for MiddleGround Capital. And certainly, if you just need to pick his brain, I'm sure you can find his name through MiddleGround. They have a great website, obviously, and And so you can find his contact information on there. So Rick, thank you so much, man, for sharing and letting us see how leaders lead more effectively. And the nuggets that you dropped were truly nuggets. And so thank you so much for taking time to come with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. To the audience, this is Dr. Terry Daniels with the Rhythm of Business podcast. Hope you come back to visit with us on a future podcast. But we've had as our guest today, Rick Brawn, who is the Managing Director of Operations for MiddleGround Capital. We hope you come back and have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.